Hi, these comments are for KA. This is Michael from BetterTOEFLScores.com, also OnlineTOEFLCourse.com. You're one of my students and you completed a pronunciation pretest and you also completed a speaking practice test. So first, let's talk about the pronunciation pretest. So when you went through part A, I listened as you read the pairs of words and I noticed there are a few problems with certain vowel and consonant sounds. So here are the lessons that you want to focus on. Remember that each lesson represents a 10 to 20 minute accent reduction video, and you want to go through those videos, practice those lessons to improve your intelligibility in those areas. At the end of each accent reduction lesson, there is a voice recording that targets the vowel and the consonant sound you're learning in the lesson. You can record that, at least 60 seconds of it. You can send it to me for feedback if you want to see how you're doing as you do your pronunciation practice. The basic rule in using my course is pretty simple. You can send me 60 seconds of speaking or 60 seconds of pronunciation practice daily. Now the exception is what you just did, the pronunciation pretest. So I just finished listening to over 6 minutes and 49 seconds of your speaking and pronunciation, and that tells me a lot of information. Okay, what have I learned? Okay, lesson number 8 I think is an important lesson for you right now, especially the pat, pot, ought. Lesson number 9, the diphthongs. You need to practice your diphthongs. Lesson number 11, this one you're more meat, but meat, mit, peat, pit. You want to make sure you practice those two sounds. Lesson number 12, focus on the longer sound. Ooh, Luke, that. You're not quite making that long enough. Lesson number 16, it's that second sound. Measure, Fraser, lesion, azure, Asia. So think of that palatal consonant. It's kind of like taking a J and a Z and combining the two sounds to create that sound. So that second sound in lesson 16, you definitely want to practice a lot. Lesson number 19, I think with this one, it's when the B's at the end of the word versus the P, you have to make the vowel a little bit longer. So you'll say flap, flab, cap, cab, lap, lab. Also, lesson number 20, especially the Z. The Z seems to be harder for you. Sip, zip, sue, zoo. Also, lesson number 24, this is called the interdental voiceless and voiced fricative consonant. You're having a little bit of trouble differentiating between those two sounds. For example, thigh, thy. Okay, so those are the main lessons. And I also listened to you answer these 3 personal experience questions. So number 1, what's your background, your educational background, and your work history? So you have a degree in pharmacology. And you also talked about going to Australia to learn English. You went back, I think, to Japan to work as a pharmacist, but you set a goal. This kind of answers question 2. You want to be a pharmacist in the United States because it pays better than in your own country, right? And then you also talked about what you hope to achieve. You want to improve your speaking abilities, but what I like about what you said, it's not just so you can get a speaking score of 26, but you want to be able to speak English, obviously for your job, and you want your clients to be able to understand you when you're filling their prescriptions. You also want to be able to communicate in more personal situations, because living in the United States, you want to make sure you can talk with your friends and your neighbors and people in stores and so on. Okay, now, as I listened to it, the question was, what is your intelligibility score? I wanted to kind of figure out how I would score you based on it. So the good news is you're fairly fluent. You don't have a lot of pauses and hesitations in there. The bad news is you do have a pretty strong accent. You even admitted to having some problems with your intonation. And that's true. Your first language, Japanese, you're used to a more monotone. How are you doing today, right? In English, we have more varied tones. Hi, how are you today? So we have some differences in terms of the tonal patterns from Japanese to English, and it is important that you learn those new tonal patterns, and that's part of what you'll be doing as you study in the pronunciation lessons of my course. Okay, the intelligibility score here, I'm going to put you the high intermediate level here. I'm going to say maybe 4.5 out of 7. So in order to be prepared for the TOEFL, you want to set a goal is when you do the post test at the end of the pronunciation section, I wouldn't take it for about a month. By the way, practice your pronunciation for a good month. Really be diligent. Maybe set aside 15 to 20 minutes every day and do that pronunciation practice. You want to try to move to the advanced level, mid-range, 5.4 to 5.7, and that pretty much guarantees that your pronunciation will not be a factor. Your delivery will be a high delivery, high score on the delivery section of the TOEFL IBT exam. Right? You can read more about high intermediate if you go to 4, and I'm not going to go over it here, but this describes your speech right now, right there. You see that? Okay. Now the next thing is you also completed, I think today, your first speaking practice test. So I'm getting ready to listen to that right now. So I'm going to get the speaking rubrics in front of me here where I can see them as I listen to your score. So I think it's your friend doesn't know what to study at the university. What do you advise him to do? I think that's a question you're answering here. And I'm going to send you a link to another website that will give you some more up-to-date topics for the current TOEFL exam as of 2019, right? So look for that in the email here in a minute. Okay, so let's get started. So this is the first time I'm listening to one of your speaking practice tests. Okay, here
I
we
would
go.
recommend him major in pharmacy. To begin with, the
Let's go back to what you just said. Actually, let me listen to the whole thing one time, and then I will listen to it another time and provide more feedback.
I would recommend him major in pharmacy. To begin with, the first reason is that pharmacists have a lot of knowledge of medicine and they can use it to help others. For instance, I am a pharmacist and I can talk about healthcare with my friends and family. Through my experience and knowledge, I can help my precious people. On top of that, pharmacists earn more than average. Salary plays an important role in our lives, and becoming a pharmacist, I can make a living relatively easily. That's why I recommend him to be a pharmacist.
Okay, so I think in this you got a pretty difficult road ahead of you here, right? So I think that mostly you're in the 2 area here. So speech is intelligible, though effort is needed because of unclear articulation, awkward tone, not so much choppy rhythm or pace, but definitely unclear articulation, awkward tone. I think that you have some limitations with both your vocabulary and your grammar. I think that's also in the 2 area. And then in the 3 area, maybe not the 3 area, in the topic development area, let me think about it. Maybe you're 3. So with delivery, you're 2. Language use, you're probably 2. Topic development, maybe in the 3 area. Overall development is somewhat limited, usually lacks elaboration or specificity. So to help you in that area, and this is kind of what I do when you do feedback, is I try to identify any specific problems and then I can recommend lessons that you can study to help you improve. So first of all, with the delivery area, I think that we need to make sure we don't put the cart in front of the horse, which means we work on things at the right time based on your current level. So I know you have problems with intonation, but you also have considerable problems with just vowel and consonant sounds, as just outlined in this pretest. So your first order of business is to focus on the lessons I told you to study in this email. You want to do that first. Now, with the language used to help you in that area, with limited range of grammar and vocabulary, at least with grammar, you can go to my blog at bettertoeflscores.com right here, and then type in these keywords. And you'll see I have over 900 different lessons here, by the way. But sometimes you need to know what you're looking for before you find it, right? So type in TOEFL sentence variety, and then let me see which one's going to help you here more. Okay, I think the very first lesson, TOEFL sentence variety practice, that's a lesson you want to study right now. I think TOEFL sentence length practice is also a good lesson for you. And this one, how long to increase? No, don't worry about that one. I don't think that one's important. Three important sentence styles. I think that's a good one. I don't want to give you too much, but I would look at those to help you. Okay, now let's go back to the rubrics. There's one more area I think that's going to be good for you. With topic development, I have a really good lesson. Again, it's over at bettertoeflscores.com. So let's take a look at this one. Okay, if you go back to Better TOEFL Scores, type in these keywords. Lacks TOEFL speaking. You see this idea here? Lacks TOEFL speaking elaboration. Click on this. I think you'll just find one link here. Actually, there's a couple of things in here that I think is going to be good. Okay, how about this? So focus on these two lessons to help you improve your topic development. Lacks TOEFL speaking elaboration. I think that's a good lesson for you right now. And then also TOEFL speaking details. Okay, those are good. Now I went back here and I'm thinking I'm going to listen to your response maybe one more time to give you a little bit more detail, but I'm thinking you're probably between 2.5 and 3. I'm going to say maybe 18 to 19 points out of 30. That's where I would put you right now. And I tend to score a little bit more difficult, harder in the scores in the actual TOEFL exam, but that's kind of where I would put you. Okay, let's listen one more
I would
time.
recommend him major in
So I would recommend you want to do this two ways. I would recommend him to major in. Let's go back.
I would recommend him major in pharmacy.
I'd recommend him to major in, or I'd recommend that he major in pharmacy. That's probably the better grammatical structure there. That's called the subjunctive. I would recommend that he major in pharmacy studies.
To begin with, the first reason is that pharmacists have
Notice how simple that first sentence is. That's why I'm recommending that you study some lessons on making your sentences a little longer, giving yourself more advanced grammar there.
I would recommend him major in pharmacy.
So I'd recommend that he major in pharmacy because he can help people with their illnesses, and he can earn more money, or he can earn a competitive salary. So instead of you incorporate those two reasons into that first sentence, that creates a complex sentence, first of all, but it also kind of outlines or organizes your speech a little bit
To
better.
begin with, the first reason is that pharmacists have a lot of knowledge of medicine and they can use it
Instead of saying this, first of all, if he majors in pharmacy, you have the opportunity to help people, right? Then you give this specific example to illustrate
to
that.
help others. For instance, I am a pharmacist and I can talk about healthcare with my friend and family. Through my experience and knowledge, I can help my precious people. On top of
But be careful about precious people. That's a little bit generic. You want to be more specific than that. You might say, for example, 2 weeks ago in my pharmacy, I had a customer come in. I was filling a prescription. Explain what it was. It was a prescription to help address his heart disease, so he wouldn't have to get a triple bypass. So as I gave him the prescription, I was able to give him some general tips and how he can improve his heart health. Right, and you can even tell him what did you say to this guy? Did you recommend that he exercise a little bit or cut back on certain foods, or what else did you tell him that you think was beneficial in helping him? So you could probably elaborate on that a little bit more.
That pharmacists earn more than average. Salary plays an important role in our lives.
Yeah, but you said it earns more than average. So what does that mean? So in the United States, I think pharmacists earn maybe between 100 and $150,000 annually. Why not say that, right? Be specific. Say compared to other jobs, with equivalent education requirements, pharmacists make upwards to 150,000 a year, which is very competitive.
Pharmacists earn more than average. Salary plays an important role in our lives, and becoming a pharmacist, I can make a living relatively easily. That's why I recommend him to be a pharmacist.
So you might want to restate if you want, if it's at the very end, because I can help people and I can earn a competitive salary, I would recommend that he become a pharmacist. Then you kind of restate those two key points that you've already said. Okay? I think that's it. I think I've covered everything. I think that my score is pretty accurate. I'm going to say two delivery, two language use, three topic development. You're probably looking maybe 18 to 19 points out of 30 on this practice test. And to conclude, I want to wish you and your family and your friends a very happy Christmas Eve. Have a Merry Christmas. And I hope that you have a Happy New Year. Thank you for submitting both your pronunciation and your speaking practice tests.